not just one of the family of nations. This is a nation with a great mission to perform for the benefit of liberty-loving people everywhere.
That we shall be as a city upon a hill.
These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of his country.
You've come to fight as three men. Three men you are. What will you do without freedom?
Proclaim liberty throughout all the land.
In one voice, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. You gotta fight for your right. Can you dig it?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition of Real News on this Thursday morning. That's what my phone's telling me over there. Hey, Google, what day is it? Google's going to tell me here in just a second that it's Thursday. Is that correct? I'm pretty sure. Shine, buddy. I got the Princess Leia headphones on again. Oh, Google doesn't understand. Google doesn't understand anything. Got my Princess Leia headphones on here, matching with the black and white theme of the background. Our buddy David Shine Thompson set up an incredible new background, new specs for us to look at here. New scroll across the bottom. I like the new color theme, man. We got the green screen growing in the background now, so I got this sort of like, effect going on where it all looks good. We're doing production stuff, man. Shine, buddy. By the way, before we hit greatest audience in the nation appreciation, I got something I need help from for the audience. How you doing this morning, buddy? Everything good on your end over there in Knoxville town?
It's doing real good, buddy. And yes, your shot looks beautiful. And I do like your headphones. I'm actually a little jelly. I think they look really nice.
That's what I'm talking about. Hey, greatest audience in the nation appreciation segment here. Let us know how you're doing with stuff, what you need help with, what you're struggling with, what you have encouragement for, praise for, prayer concerns, any of that stuff that's going on in your life right now. Let us know, especially we're going into Memorial Day weekend. Let us know what your weekend plans are and everything. I actually have a kind of request that I want to throw out there. So Shine and I are putting in as much effort as possible to make this. And oh, what a cool shot, man. That just came up on my Facebook Live. I love you in the top corner there. That's cool. Sorry, I got distracted. Anyways, I just saw Shine up in the top corner of this thing. Yeah, squirrel. Anyways, so we're putting in as much effort as possible to make this an awesome product for the community, to bring this stuff together, to hopefully, as we transition out of this whole shutdown phase, Sean and I really want to make this an ongoing portion of this community, of what we do with our daily lives, in our job as well, of bringing a bunch of stuff from Americans for Prosperity, the company we work with, back into this community once we go back into the legislature and all that stuff. Anyways, part of that for me is actually building my own computer system here. And I can't find a power supply unit, Shine, anywhere. So if any of my tech folks out there know somewhere that I can find a power supply unit that's at least 80 plus gold certified, that's not like 3 or 4 times the market value normally, let me know. Because if it's out there, I can't find it, and maybe I just need to wait on, market forces to shift around or do whatever they're going to do. And, maybe I'm just stuck right now, buddy. I don't know. But if you can help me with that, in all sincerity, it's the final piece, man. For like a month and a half, I've been slowly trickling each individual part of this computer, and so I can finally put the build together. It's the last piece I need to put it together.
Have you tried Facebook Marketplace? Have you tried? Are you worried about that? Are you scared?
Yeah, I'm a little bit, because I guess the first time I've done it, and I guaranteed I'm going to screw something up. You know what I mean? And if I screw it up, I just want it to be my fault and not the fault of buying some.
Well, I can tell you, I bought 2 power supplies on Facebook Marketplace. Had great experiences.
All right.
People are generally cool. Believe it or not, they won't bring you an empty box full of lint. They'll actually bring you a power supply.
Yeah, all right.
I recommend it.
I might try that.
Yeah, I've done it twice, and installation's easy. You got this.
And this is a bit of me using this as an opportunity too for the greatest audience in the nation appreciation segment. I gotta say how appreciative I am of the folks out there that have helped me already, specifically Daniel Blanchett and our boy Zach out there too. Both those guys, man. Ran my parts list past them, let them pick at the shreds, see what was up, see what was down, see what was good, see what was bad, all that stuff. So appreciate y'all. Hey, show notes there at the top of the show notes. Let's get straight into the stuff that's local here. Mayor Jacobs applauding the health department's phase 2 reopening plan. Now, this phase 2, phase 1, phase 3 stuff, it's not worth going into right now. Just take everyone's word for it that phase 2, I think, is somewhat substantially different from phase 1, but it may not feel like it. at least on its face, it may not feel like it. It might just feel like a slightly better or more open version of the phase one, which is exactly what you would expect. But Mayor Jacobs did respond to this as Knox County came out yesterday and says, yeah, we're entering into this phase two. This is not Mayor Jacobs' response saying, I want to applaud Dr. Buchanan, her team, and the citizen volunteers of the Knoxville-Knox County Reopening Task Force for their dedicated service and guidance. I feel the plan they developed balances the need for both healthy people and a healthy economy. It's a balancing act that he's been doing since the very, very beginning. Going on to say, I'm looking forward to their release of some of the guidance for phase two. That was yesterday afternoon, as it will enable our community to move forward and get more people back to work. It's important that we continue pushing ahead as a unified community as phase two gets fully underway. And again, a lot of this phase rollout of phase two, a lot of that information is not going to be delivered until tomorrow. The phase two will begin on May 26th. And the full plan is actually going to be released on, like I said, tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon. And it'll be a county by county wide type basis type thing. But we're just getting people ready for this ahead of time, because part of the theme that we focused on yesterday was this aspect of like a little bit of misinformation, a little bit of fear coupled with that misinformation. And we keep talking about this idea, man, if you this weird sort of cocktail mixture of a lot of fear coupled with a little bit of guilt and a little bit of misinformation. And now it's just this recipe for utter chaos and just a lack of understanding, to the extent of where I don't know how people feel about this genuinely. And in a general sense, I genuinely am not able to get a pulse on how my friends feel about a phased reintroduction. I know, at least from anecdotal evidence, which take it or leave it, I know at least from anecdotal evidence, there's a lot of people around the Knoxville area and around the Nashville area that have straight up told me, like, Grant, I'm not comfortable going back. And Sean, I want to bring you here in a second. I don't want you to sound anybody up, but I know you have at least a couple anecdotal stories yourself, man, of like getting back in, opening stuff back up. Let me go back through here in just a second as to what that means. But some of the stories that I want to bring up here in a second of like, do you know people that are just not comfortable getting back into it yet, in spite of what media is telling them? Because, dude, there's just seems to be a lot of evidence coming out right now that, like, I don't know, we're getting to it. We've squashed the curve, as they say. Like, eventually life has to start back up again, right? Real quickly here before I go to our buddy Shine, this is what Knox News is reporting on. Knox County will move into phase two on Tuesday. That's next week, rather. Bars, pools, and more can open. They're saying phase two allows for additional types of businesses to open and easing up on social distancing restrictions that were designed initially to slow the spread of COVID-19. Buchanan said that the data looks, quote, really good, and we're thrilled with that. As far as Knox County is concerned, they detected 322 cases of COVID-19. That's up from 316 cases reported on Tuesday. There were 35 active cases, marking a sizable drop from the 47 on Tuesday. And I'm fairly certain, don't quote me on this, but I'm fairly certain Knox County still does not have a single individual left in the hospital with this. Here's some of the general types of businesses that may open after Memorial Day. Talking all food service businesses within dining room, food truck parks and bars, indoor leisure centers, daycare centers, and summer camps. Now, these are just day summer camps, not the overnight summer camps. Pools and splash areas, water venues, outdoor recreation spaces. Now, playgrounds still have to remain closed there, but libraries will open back up. Outdoor, indoor events with 50 guests or fewer. You're seeing that number increase, man. So look, that's a little bit of the details behind it. Much more details are going to follow. We heard Governor Lee talk last Friday about how we're going to have large attraction spaces open back up again. But Shine, let me kick it to you and a little bit from Facebook as well. Are y'all hearing any of these similar stories that I am as well, where people, at least some folks in my life, are just not quite ready for yet? And I'm kind of like, well, you don't have to go back to it. I mean, unless your job's working, you don't have to go back into normal operational life, right?
Well, I think I definitely have friends. I have a friend who's a server who is asthmatic. She's not comfortable going back to work. I won't say her name. They always say, if you're going to tell the tale, don't say the name. And if you're going to say the name, don't tell the tale, But I know a lot of people who are, and not a lot, I don't know all these people or whatever, but I do anecdotally in my life know 2 or 3 people who are uncomfortable going back. But what you just said there, just because they're opening doesn't mean you have to go. I said that to them, and it's like no one had said that to them. And they were immediately relieved. They were like, "Oh, well, that's right." Like, it's so weird that people are sitting around like literally waiting for government to tell them what to do and act like they have to do that. Isn't that weird? I was like, just because the government's saying you can go to work if you want to stay home, it's just like before. Just quit your job if you want to. Just stay home, And unfortunately, she has a significant other who can pay for everything. So like, I was just like, just stay home. You don't have to go. Now, some people aren't in that position, but there was also a lot of money thrown out there about a month ago by the government that people are still collecting on. So I don't know if you needed any more than that, but that's my little anecdotal stories about it. I mean, I don't know. Me personally, my fiance has been working the whole time in retail. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So you would have thought that either one of us would be sick right now, theoretically, and we're not. So I'm not scared at all. And I tell people that. I'm like, she works in retail. Neither of us have had symptoms. Nobody she's worked around has had any symptoms. And she's seen it's not Walmart, it's a plant store. So they're not getting 500 people a day. But it's more people than most people are seeing a day. But that's the anecdotal stuff I have. I'm really glad we're going to be opening these things up. Some of these attractions and allowing music, because some of my favorite venues, I don't want them to go under. And some of these attractions that pump our economy full of money, not just for payroll, but for sales taxes that pay for schools and roads and all that stuff, we don't want them to close. Like the Knoxville Zoo needs to get open. It's the #1 attraction in Knox County. I mean, how much money do we make off that? The stuff in Pigeon Forge and Sevier County, that needs to get open. The stuff in Nashville needs to get open, or how are we going to pay for these schools? We got to do it.
Hey, by the way, John said in Facebook, I think we were asking how everyone's doing. He's saying just getting Outback takeout and chilling at home. That's what I'm talking about, man. That's the way to get through this shutdown. So get some Outback takeout and chill at home. And more to the point of the story that we're talking about right now, Kelly says, wait, didn't she have some secret backdoor meeting that wasn't open to the public or local journalists? I assume Kelly is talking about Dr. Buchanan. I have no idea, honestly, so I couldn't comment on that. But I do know that our boy Richard likes to watch quite often, and we'll see if we can reach out to him to follow up on that assertion right there. Michaela, actually, to the point that we're talking about now, said in Facebook, she says, I like the phases, but I'm so worried and nervous about it, saying I don't think we've squashed it at all. I obviously talking about the curve, not thinking that we've actually squashed the curve down at all. So a little bit worried about this sort of phased reopening. She goes on to say that Stephen, her husband, I assume there, works as a medic, and we haven't gotten sick, but she's still worried about it. Obviously it's one of those things where if you have someone that works on the front lines, how they may or may not bring some of this stuff back into their house, man. And that's what I'm saying, where, it's got to be on a case-by-case basis. And I think everyone has to handle this individually as they feel comfortable to, as they feel comfortable get back into it. Now look, employment is one thing. Okay. Employment is something that's it kind of is what it is type thing. If you're lucky enough to work for an employer that allows you to work at home, that's a fantastic thing. Now, outside of that, in your spare time, if you don't want to expose yourself any more than you have to, then by all means, you certainly don't have to. And again, at some point, if this stuff starts ticking back up again, we're going to have that libertarian style type conversation of when is it right to stay home and when is it right for government intervention? And hopefully, I don't know, man. I really don't. This first time around, if they're talking about a reintroduction this in the fall, as other flus have had a tendency to do, this phase of it has been an incredible social experiment, right? Of people really trying to figure out, we keep talking about going back to first principles, people trying to figure out, what does it mean to have the government involved in my life? At what point can they intervene? At what point should they ever intervene? And if they do start intervening on things that are my inherent liberties, how far do I let them go with that, just for the simple sake of protection or alleged protection? And it's that alleged protection that I keep focusing on right now because of another Fox News headline story that's coming out. So at the top of the show notes there, you can see all our show notes. Evernote link is the best thing to follow that with in the descriptions of this video. CDC is now saying that coronavirus does not actually spread easily via contaminated surfaces. This is something, dude, that like everybody was talking about. I'm not going to lie here. And when Michaela's talking about she's a little bit worried about this, I completely empathize. And yes, I do mean the word empathize and not sympathize. I completely empathize with Michaela because, as the Real News audience knows, I've been vulnerable with you all the entire time. I am a bit of a hypochondriac, if not a full-on qualified hypochondriac. At every point in my life, there's something that's probably going to kill me. Anytime I have a small pain in my body, I'm virtually certain it's the end type thing, right? It's a real problem for me. I'm not lying.
I can verify that he is not putting on an act for the show. I've been on Zoom calls with him when his wife comes home from wherever she's gone, and he's like, so did you touch anything? Wipe that down right now. Wash your hands.
True.
Don't touch me. He's nice about it though. He doesn't say stuff like I do, but he is definitely scared for sure.
But I also know that it's the irrational portion of my brain that's doing it. Like it's not exactly a logical approach to what's going on out there right now. So I understand that I'm in this small minority, and also I understand that being in the minority coupled with the irrational part that takes over sometimes, I got to be able to figure that stuff out. But I say that just because these types of stories, when I would read these headlines popping across, any other news outlet out there of like, we were hearing stories. Sean, you said before something about, you were hearing stories about the virus can stay on surfaces for 2-3 weeks sometimes.
I'm sure if anyone wants to, they can Google right now a story from March that talked about it staying on surfaces for up to 17 days. And it was from March. So it's super weird. This has been the weirdest thing because we heard all these stories in March. And we were all scared. We saw video from China of people collapsing just walking down the street. And now only people who were like really bad heart stuff, really bad obesity problems, people with people who were really sick to begin with. Those are the people that are dying. You're not hearing about people that are super healthy. But anyway, it's just super weird that we heard all these stories, and then there's been this trickle and now they're saying the opposite. We're in a weird boat, man. But this is one of the weirdest ones because, I mean, have you been to a restaurant, Grant? I guess you haven't, Mr. Hypochondriac. Like, they wipe down everything.
No, dude, I haven't been. No.
It's like there's servers who come in just to wipe down stuff all the time instead of serving, so.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, and the reason why I bring this up, dude, is because like you hear those stories about like people going grocery shopping or getting Amazon boxes delivered or something and setting them aside for the necessary 2 to 3 quarantine period. So the virus dies in some surface or something. I'm not going to lie, man. Like everyone in the audience could absolutely see Mr. Henry doing that right now and absolutely see driving his wife insane, probably, who's listening right now. And I'm sure rolling her eyes like, yeah, that may or may not have happened. I don't know. But again, the point being is Jonathan sent Facebook saying that he saw that saw this headline a couple of days ago and was surprised, but not really. He said he's known for a long time that the charged surfaces like metal causes the ionic bond cells and virus to break down. But the more we learn about the virus, the better. And this is what the CDC is allegedly saying now, that for those of you, this is a Fox News headline, for those of you still wiping down groceries and other packages amid ongoing coronavirus pandemic, breathe a sigh of relief. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention now says that the novel virus, quote, does not spread easily from touching surfaces or objects. But experts still warn, obviously, that doesn't mean that it's no longer necessary to take practical and realistic precautions in stopping the spread. Now, this change comes after a preliminary study from March suggesting that the novel coronavirus can remain in the air for up to 3 hours and live on surfaces such as plastics and stainless steel for up to 3 days and longer, in some of the estimates we were just talking about before, promoting many to take steps of wiping down packages and others. However, at the time, this study that apparently the media just ran with for everybody, that particular study was not peer-reviewed yet, as Yahoo actually notes in the show notes that you'll see there. It did not determine if people could be infected from touching surfaces that were analyzed. Now, Dr. John White, he's the chief medical officer for healthcare website WebMD, and Dr. William Schaffner, he's the Schaffner or whatever, he's the medical director for National Foundation of Infectious Diseases. They all seemingly agree, said that it was this whole aspect of the media telling you that you can pick up, this virus from surfaces when you go grocery shopping and to set your grocery sides for a couple days or Amazon packages, that also helps add to the amount of anxiety and stress that people are going through, which is this terrible perpetuating cycle. And it just further exacerbates. People are already on edge. It's already walking on pins and needles every single day, wondering if something's going to come about just by existing in life, let alone have you inadvertently brought that into your house to then expose to the rest of your family. That level of stress and anxiety is too much for people sometimes, man. Too much. You're going on to say that many people were concerned that by simply touching an object, they may get coronavirus, and that's simply not the case. Even when a virus may stay on a surface, it doesn't mean that it's actually infectious. So again, yet one more time, it's this idea of as we reopen, as people are getting more and more comfortable with life, as we understand what normalcy may be, And as I hope that people are rejecting this term of new normal, I really don't like the conditioning, the preconditioning, the sort of, I don't know, man, what that does on a very subtle psychological level. I'm not saying it's necessarily predictive programming, but this aspect of new normal, I just don't like the feeling behind it, right? As we're reintroducing here, man, we have to figure out a way to get stuff back to where it needs to be. And get stuff back to, I don't know, taking some sense of logic back into your life. I mean, from day one, I've always said, I get it. I'm irrational when it comes to this stance, and I'm trying to figure out how to get some logic back in here, man, because we have to open stuff back up. As we're opening this stuff back up, Washington Times headline, Trump is now saying that he's going to speed deregulation and relax red tape across the board. And this is a tendency that has been picked up by other governors throughout the state as well, throughout the nation as well, I mean. So as we're coming back into an economy, we have to understand that you're going to have to start being a little bit more logical about how we approach some of these things. President Trump is ordering a sweeping emergency deregulation effort Tuesday to jumpstart the economic recovery as states reopen from coronavirus shutdowns. Now, he directed all federal agencies to, quote, not over-enforce regulations against small businesses that are working to bounce back. Mr. Trump signed this executive order. Mr. Trump, Washington Times. President Trump signed this executive order in his first cabinet meeting since the crisis hit that directs federal agencies to rapidly use all emergencies and good cause for authorities to find red tape where they can cut it and be rescinded or temporarily waived to promote job creation, economic growth. Now, in addition to cutting regulations, the president order also instructs cabinet agencies to, quote, consider exercising appropriate temporary enforcement discretion for the good of the recovery. And I think a little bit this, man, is a little bit of what we showed yesterday. That clip that we showed yesterday, of the police officer showing up in New Jersey to that protest shutdown rally, and the New Jersey officer saying, by the way, you are in violation of the executive order. With that being said, have a great day. Just kind of walking away. Trump essentially saying, like, look, in this idea of a social contract theory, you have to figure out what the give and take is. And you have to figure out that, like, as our fear is forcing us to stay shut down, there does need to be a way to safely reopen. That is just it's exactly what's going on. It's the truth of the matter. There has to be a way for us to safely reopen. And safe is the operative term there, right? I don't think we have to deal with this false dichotomy of where everything needs to be open or everything has to be shut down. Because I'm telling you right now, man, the potential that may come from the economic devastation that we're going through currently, I mean, the full-on economic shutdown, I mean, I'm not talking just recession here. I'm talking full-on potential depression. If we get to a level of full-on economic depression again, I can't tell you the ripples that will come out of that, the extent to which that will exacerbate the problems that we are currently dealing with, all right? If we have a situation where, I don't know, man, segments of the population that are already malnourished or even more malnourished, that they have no opportunity to get healthcare now, and that dries up even further going forward. That if states can't figure out how to reopen their economy and spend money again, you can't get the basic necessities of life. If that's happening now, currently, and we haven't even started to feel the effects of this economic shutdown yet. Once we get to a point in fall where if and when this reintroduces again, do you get what I'm saying, Sean? Like this stuff, the compounding variables that we're having to deal with currently are only going to be worse if we don't try and figure out something with this economic situation ahead. Now, let me add a bit of a silver lining here too, though, okay? As the American economy is bad, that's correct. But you know what the adage goes. If the American economy gets a cough, the rest of the world economy gets a cold. And in this situation too, I mean, unless I'm missing a few, for the developed nations that actually are playing into the world economy at hand, I don't know, maybe outside of China and Russia, because we can't get a good feeling in that, everyone else is dealing with this economic situation as bad or worse than we are. I mean, their economic situation is as bad or worse than America's right now. So yes, we are struggling, but so is the rest of the world. So it's a bit of perspective sense. And as we talk about a lot on this show right now too, we are entering a phase, I truly believe, and so do our economic experts, where the rest of the world is going to become completely reliant upon the purchasing power of not just the American dollar, but the American populace. The demographic tree breakdown of the American populace is such that the people that can actually buy stuff, i.e. the majority of the demographic that I would think would watch this program, those that are, I don't know, somewhere between 20 and 50, The demographic breakdown is a little bit looking like this. Now, it gets a little bit skinnier towards the bottom, but you have a bit of a fat portion in the middle, whereas every other developed nation in the world right now has something that's a straight break down the middle. It's heavy at the top, but those consumer base that you need to buy stuff is virtually non-existent. And that's primarily because people stopped having kids. For a very long time, stopped having kids. Each family needs to have, on average, about 2 children to just maintain population. And the rest of the world has been somewhere below 1, 1.5, less than 1. I'm talking all across Europe. I'm talking, Eastern countries in particular. We're talking certain ones. I'm talking Australia. I'm talking Canada. It doesn't necessarily matter where you go. Middle Eastern countries are the only ones that are overwhelming everybody else, and their average is somewhere between 6 and 8 children per family. Now, if you look how this plays out in a long-term perspective, and that's what I'm talking about. In the short term, it feels very, very scary. But in a very long-term perspective, if you couple that with what's going on with the oil situation right now, of America being a net energy exporter, it's not looking that bad. In perspective, all things considered, it's not looking all that bad, man. And that's what I'm saying is you have to keep it in perspective. As long as we can get through this, rely upon our neighbors. I do think the American consumer base is what everybody's going to have to rely upon. I don't think they've ever needed America worse than they've needed us right now. And you can see President Trump said this, getting back to the story at hand. He says, it's happening already. You see what's going on. He said this yesterday. We're opening up. He told his reporters after speaking to Senate Republicans at their weekly luncheon, we're going to have a really good third quarter. It's already happening. We have states that are opening up and the infection numbers are going down. That's the key component. And I would tell you right now, don't lose heart. Don't get too frustrated. If, as we open back up into phase 2 and phase 3, some of these infection numbers go back up. Look, man, we're still testing. We're still doing an abundance of new testing. We're still going to have this antibody testing that I just heard this morning is also being coupled with positive case testing. And that's somehow commingling the numbers and confusing a lot of people as to what is and is not accurate reporting. It's going to get a little bit confusing for a little while.
Well, the more antibody tests we have, the more the fatality rate will drop. Because right now we're using a fatality rate, no matter where you go on the internet and look for what they're calling death rate or fatality rate, is based on confirmed cases, which massively inflates the number. Because obviously there's more people who have been exposed than have been tested, even though we are testing more people than anywhere in the world. But as soon as we get this antibody test thing going and you figure out all the people who've been exposed, and not only exposed, but have beaten it, like have developed antibodies so they don't get the disease anymore, or at least don't experience symptoms, you're going to see that death rate, which is only at 3% or less than 3% right now of confirmed cases.
So what that worldwide?
Yeah. No, in the United States.
In the U.S.
In the United States, I think it's around 3%. But really what that means is we have a 97% recovery rate. That's a real statement. We don't really have a 3% death rate because we don't know how many people got the disease. But of the people who got the disease and needed medical treatment, 97% of them have recovered. That's amazing, considering that the amount of people actually exposed is so much higher than the confirmed cases. I think that there was a study out of California that said it's probably around 10 times, if not 15 times more than the confirmed case numbers. So just keep that in mind if you're a worrier. If you're the kind of person that is because that's a personality type. It's totally okay to be the kind of person who makes sure things are safe, makes sure things are in order. That's a totally reasonable and normal kind of way to be. In fact, if you're a mother, you're going to be kind of genetically predisposed to be more that way because you have to take care of a child who can't take care of itself, or there's lots of reasons to be that kind of person. But just you can take heart when you see percentages of death rate, it's really way lower than that. It's probably 10 times lower than that because of the suspected cases versus confirmed. And we're going to get that. We're going to get those numbers very soon in the future. And I think the more numbers, the more science is applied and less guessing, less modeling, more figuring things out. The more people actually figure things out, at least the trend I'm seeing is it's going to be more and more good news.
Well, look, as Shine's pulling up the first clip we have here for today, under that tab of Governor Newsom speaking on federal aid, the question that was posed to Governor Newsom is, what will happen to your state if the federal government doesn't pay up? This is a story that needs no introduction at all to the Real News audience, because we've been talking about this issue of the federal government bailing out states for probably the last 2 weeks. Josh just said in Facebook, we went from flatten the curve to no one can be infected and no one can die. This idea that there's this, it's difficult to have nuanced conversation during this time period right now. Partly because the setup for the stage of what we just entered was some of the most partisan, vitriolic, divided times in modern political history, right? We've set up this period right before coronavirus hit where it's only black and white, where there is no middle ground. There is no such thing as gray. There is no such thing as conceding a point. There is no such thing as even partial agreement, let alone bipartisanship. And Michaela kind of hits it on the head where she says, like, I go out. I'm not saying not to go out. I'm saying that people need to think of other people and do what's best for everyone. And this is the thing, man. Like, I think we can go back to this time again. We can go back to this idea of, like, just in a libertarian sense, do what's right for you. Do what's right for your neighbors. Make the proper decision based on logic, based on scientific evidence. I think this is the time where we can burn off the nonsense of the past, that we don't need that divisiveness anymore. We don't need to be so partisan. We don't need to make it just D versus R, blue versus red, liberal versus conservative. We don't need that stuff anymore, because the practical nature of what we're forced up against right now, that should be the only thing that drives our decisions. And if you introduce enough decent evidence, enough empirical, scientifically backed data for whatever your stuff is, it should logically lead everyone, or so says Socrates. It should lead everyone to the same general conclusion that we can find some sense of a consensus on. And I think there's a way to do that. And Shine, go ahead and play that first clip here, because it's getting a little bit to the point of what I'm making, where Governor Newsom initially was like, nah, I don't want to open up, in part because he was hoping the federal government was going to bail him out. Go ahead, Shine.
Big headlines today. Gavin Newsom and his economic task force sending a letter to Congress asking for an additional $1 trillion in federal aid to help state and local governments. Nearly 100 business leaders, including Disney's Bob Iger, former Fed Chair Janet Yellen, and Salesforce CEO Mark Benioff, signed that letter. I sat down with the governor earlier today exclusively and asked him what would happen if Congress didn't pay up.
Public health, public safety is impacted. Public education is impacted very directly. That doesn't need to happen. The purpose of federal government is to keep people safe and also focus on the well-being of our citizens. At the end of the day, we're not looking for charity. We're not looking for handout. We believe this is social responsibility. It's not a red issue. It's not a blue issue. It's not a large state issue or a small state issue. It's an American issue. You heard Jerome Powell himself today talk about the impact of this, the likes of which we've never seen in our lifetime. And so it's incumbent upon the federal government to do more and to do better at this moment. And not pointing fingers when I say that. I am just saying we have a shared responsibility to the American people, 40 million that live in the state of California.
The bill is already receiving some pushback,
right
some
there,
opposition.
Look, people just aren't buying it. They're just not buying it. And that's just not my opinion either. All right. This is a CNBC clip that you can see the scroll at the banner at the bottom right of the screen. I could give you all the reasons in the world why at this point, like, people just are not buying this pitch that it's like, I don't know, there's some moral imperative behind this, that there's it's not just the ethically right thing to do, that there's a necessity for the federal government to bail out the states. I'm not going to belabor the point anymore of going over, like, what do you want to do? What do you think's going to happen? Okay, if the federal government gives you $1 trillion to bail out just a couple of states, you think they're just going to, like, okay, cool, just wipe your hands clean, like, thanks, have a good day? No, man, they're going to force you to do things that you don't want to do. They're going to force you to cut programs that you don't want to cut. They're going to force blue states to run their finances just like they are Republican states. I would love that outcome. I would absolutely love that outcome, but not by force, not by coercion, not because the federal government is forcing the states to do it. That seems to be inherently anti-10th Amendment. It's not the tack that I want to take. I want it to be done because it's the proper thing to do. I want it to be done because people have been genuinely convinced that it's the proper thing to do, that blue states are finally looking at their budget and thinking, what have we done? Hold on. Governor Newsom, dude, wait. You're asking for a bailout that is more than double or triple our normal state budget. What happened to the rest of it? Like, we're the third or fourth highest producing economy. Okay, let's say the fifth or sixth highest producing economy in the world. the state of California, what happens to all that revenue? And if you can't figure that out, I think Californians are starting to ask that question. And it's not just me. Look at the like-dislike ratio of this video. That's in part why I grabbed this video, because it's CNBC. Now, granted, it's not CNN, okay? So it's not the furthest left version you can go, but it's certainly not 793 likes as far as I'm looking right now, 1,584 dislikes as far as the time of me recording this video currently. There you go. More double the dislikes almost than the likes. And just scrolling down, looking at some of the comments, I haven't really, looked over these, Sean. So if there's some cursing or something, I don't know, maybe want to qualify that first. But either way, just scrolling down some of the comments, you can see, dude, that the comment section is overwhelmingly disagreeing with where Governor Newsom is coming from this. One of them is saying, where was this guy when rental prices rose 200% over the last 5 years? Where was Newsom or anybody else when rental prices rose 200% over the last 5 years? Somebody else saying, stop giving free medical care to illegal aliens. Somebody else said, why should the California government get money when this derelict has sanctuary cities and is giving money to illegal aliens? Now, a lot of this sounds like Republican talking points. I don't know, bro. Maybe this is 1,500 Republican trolls just flooding the CNBC website. Maybe. But that's a lot of time out of your day, dude. And it's not just this video. It's any video that Newsom has done over the last couple of weeks on this issue. People just aren't buying it anymore. I think... because, again, one of the themes of the show today is because the practical reality of what's happening right now is butting up against what people would like to be Democrat governors would like to remain principled somehow in this. Go ahead.
We say all the time, I feel like saying it again. The mission of this show is not to bring our reality to everybody else. It's to bring the reality to everyone. And I think what these Democrats are dealing with is the reality is just that it's slamming them in the face. It's like that old intro we used to have. It was like, reality? Who invited that guy? That's what California's saying right now is, man, why did this have to happen now? We were just about to give billions of dollars to homeless people. Or whatever. I mean, and what stinks for them, and I do not wish ill for anyone in California. I'm sure there's great people, and the people of California are great people, whatever. I don't wish them any harm or whatever. But you have people like Elon Musk leaving. Yeah, he's leaving. Right. And those are well-paying jobs. Those are good jobs, right? Those are real good jobs. And that's just a high-profile person. How many other manufacturer people are leaving California? How many? I mean, even you talked about Hollywood at the beginning of the show. How many people in video production are leaving California? How many people in who do news commentary or any kind of online commentary leaving California because of that gig law they passed last year, where you can't pay people unless you're giving them health insurance and paying them $50,000 a year or something like that. There's so many journalists who got fired in California who probably moved because they couldn't work in California anymore. They're constantly doing things that are making people who make money leave. So it's not just the bad leadership and the spending. They're losing the golden goose for them.
Jonathan just said in his Facebook a second ago, California has the 5th largest GDP in the world. That one state, he says, the state of California alone has a larger GDP than the whole of UK. Than the entire country of the United Kingdom. The state of California alone has a larger GDP. He goes on to say that you're also starting to see challengers to progressive left from fiscally conservative Democrats. The blue dog is back in popularity. Very, very interesting there. I look at another comment from the YouTube video that we just played here. Why does the governor sound like he's begging? Also, why does everything he says is wrong with California sounds like it's doing it to mess up, not because of Corona? Look, I go on one more time to just show the practical reality of what Governor Newsom is faced with right now. If you don't want to take my word for it, that's fine. If you don't want to take the presentations that Sean and I have been doing over the last 2 weeks about this issue, that's fine. If you don't want to take, the word of those YouTube commentators, or if you don't think that the like-dislike ratio is a thing to be considered, that's fine as well. Think about this story then, coming from Deadline. Hollywood gobsmacked by California governor's plan to potentially reopen production soon. I mean, dude, it's getting a little bit funny to see how some of these leaders are so quickly changing their mind about opening or not opening the economy again once they start to realize that their state may have a problem. Once Governor Newsom is getting word that, hey, man, maybe the senators are probably not going to pass this $3 trillion bill to bail us out. Maybe we need to start doing something. But now all of a sudden your mind is changing again because you have real situations you have to deal with. And this is what I'm saying, that a little bit of this show today, man, is to be able to look those fears in the face and understand that I will not succumb to those fears. Now, that by no means, buddy, by anybody listening, that by no means means be illogical, be irrational, go out there and just open up everything at one time. Don't do it safely. By no means does that mean don't take precautions. Don't wear masks if you want to. Don't use hand sanitizer. None of that is what I'm saying. But the fear that comes along beside this type of stuff, man, it cannot coexist with the practical reality of having to live life and getting over this and overcoming this. Governor Newsom here may see the state as mere days away from new guidelines to open up further after the coronavirus pandemic, but the entertainment industry insiders are feeling broadsided by today's announcement. One top executive, this is the setup for this, by the way. So Governor Newsom's on a Zoom call with like the Hollywood elite. I'm talking like the CEO, owner of Netflix, the Hulu guy is on there. Some, Hollywood A-list actress. I don't even remember her name. Doesn't matter. She's an Academy Award nominated actress is on there. Some Hollywood major level producers on there. You got a director. It's like the Hollywood folks. It's like Hollywood in a room is on a Zoom call with Governor Newsom. And he drops this bomb like, by the way, y'all, we kind of need Hollywood to bail us out of this revenue hole that we're in. So I'm going to need you to open back up. And one executive actually responded to this by saying, WTF, fill in the blanks of that acronym, saying, have they talked to the unions? Because I don't think this is going to jive with them. The article goes on to say, well, Hollywood official studio streamers, agencies, and corner offices were a wall of no comment on the governor's anticipated proposal. Almost universally, the response off the record was one of astonishment. Additionally, despite weeks of work here in Southland and putting together industry guidelines, almost all of the well-positioned individuals Deadline spoke to asserted that they had no idea this announcement was coming from Northern California-based Newsom. The quote here is that we're over a month away, at least from reopening sets. That's a seasoned producer on one of these variety shows saying, I don't care what Newsom says. I'm looking at July at the earliest to make sure everything is safe for my people. Another top agency executive says there's no way we're ready yet. There are too many cases here, too many deaths, too many unknowns. They can't even get corner stores to stick with the rules of reopening, so sets and studio lots are a long way away from being safe to reopen. And this, frankly, buddy, is me saying like, well, good on ya. Fantastic. I don't care. If Hollywood's not ready to reopen, then no one's really going to miss Hollywood all that much, first of all. And secondly, this should be the beauty of a free society. This should be the beauty of a free market. This should be the beauty of voluntarism. This should be the beauty of everything that I would like to think that libertarians and conservatives hold so dear. That I think the practical reality of, like Shine says all the time, reality is coming back whether they want it to or not. The practical reality of Newsom having to fall up against, we need the economy to reopen, but I can't force these people to do it. Nor should you have the option to do so, Governor Newsom.
I think it's pretty funny that he's Northern California based now. He was their hero 2 weeks ago doing his daily briefings that were competing with Trump. But now he's Northern California based. Gavin Newsom. How funny, man. They won't even stand up with their own people. That's so weird. They'll even throw the guy who basically does anything they want them to do under the bus. How weird is that? But yeah, I'm definitely not going to cry myself to sleep if Hollywood doesn't come out with any new movies. I'll just keep watching YouTube. I'll keep watching Joe Rogan.
And pull up that Governor Cuomo clip too, because in a different context across the country, we hit a West Coast thing there. Let's hit an East Coast thing on the national level. You'll see the same thing in this like-dislike ratio. You'll see the same thing when it comes to the comments. In this particular context, though, what Governor Cuomo is about to talk about is the government of New York allowing, really stressing that term there, allowing religious gatherings to open for at least 10 or more people, for up to 10 people. Sorry, for up to 10 people. Sean, go ahead and play that clip when you're ready. We'll listen to at least some of it.
We're working with religious institutions. Right now, they can have up to 10 people with strict social distancing guidelines at religious gatherings. We've asked them to consider drive-in and parking lot services for religious ceremonies. But we're going to be working with our Interfaith Advisory Council. Our Interfaith Advisory Council has representatives of the religious community across the state, all different religions. I understand their desire to get back to religious ceremonies as soon as possible. As a former altar boy, I get it. I think even at this time of stress and when people are so anxious and so confused, I think those religious ceremonies can be very comforting.
You can stop it there if you want to, Sean. I mean, look, he goes on to say, I think those religious ceremonies can be very comforting. He throws some other platitudes out there. But the point again to bring this up is like, okay, different topic, different state. Topic now is talking about opening up for religious gatherings. Topic in California was we need the federal government to bail us out. Topic here in New York is, well, maybe we should let churches meet again. And the reaction on Bloomberg politics over here to the other side, on the other end of the country, Bloomberg, again, not exactly a conservative source. Look at that like-dislike ratio, 122 to 332 as far as I'm looking at it right now. And the comments are the exact same thing. Talking about 10 people more at churches, hold 100 more. The comments are obviously going to the lowest hanging fruit of like, hang on, hold on. So we'll allow 10 people at church, but you'll allow 800 people to walk into a Walmart and a Home Depot on any given occasion. I mean, they're drawing the logical conclusions of reality coming back of like, dude, hang on a second, man. Like, why are we all okay with massive mega retail chains being open and somehow being able to figure out how to do this social distancing thing, but you're making it oddly about this religious ceremony for some particular reason. And even if you're not, the fact that you're singling out churches, they now have a problem with because you're making it a First Amendment thing and not a COVID-19 thing. And I thought it was just me for a little while, Sean. I thought it was just me and maybe our real news audience or something that was because I have conservative bias, because we have libertarian bias. Maybe I was seeing something that wasn't there, but it's just nice. It's slightly encouraging to see a few of these things, a few of these, like-dislike ratios, the most of the comments to be on the same side of like, what are you kidding? What are you talking about? How are you going to allow that many people in retail shops and think that churches can't get it right as well? Now, if you want to make some principled or nuanced argument about how, well, we need to gauge this properly and there's not merely a necessity for people to meet in churches, like there is a necessity for people to go out and buy, stores or something like that, then maybe that's okay. We could get our heads behind that idea. If you want to have some nuanced conversation about why you shouldn't allow stuff to happening on weekends so you can limit the exposure, but that's not what he's doing. It's a hard line in the sand. And now I'm trying to figure out here, Shine, as he's pulling up one of the final clips of the day here. It's that Nancy Pelosi fat shaming clip there. I'm trying to figure out here if there's lines that are being drawn that I can follow at all anymore. At all. Because Sean had some good input in this clip that we're about to play. If you haven't seen this fat shaming moment of Nancy Pelosi, pay attention to this clip. Let's play it real quick and then I'll set up my opinion afterwards. Go ahead and play that clip. Starting in 40
I would rather he not be taking something that has not been approved by the scientists, especially in his age group and in his, shall we say, weight group, what is morbidly obese.
Shall I say, morbidly obese. Look, and here's my take on it. And I'll give Sean a chance to respond after this, because this is initially how I thought about all this. Actually, Sean, before I do that real quick, go ahead and play at least just the beginning clip of that next one as he's getting this set up. The Nancy Pelosi now having to defend her fat shaming statements. So that was the statement that she made yesterday or the day before or something, after Trump obviously came out and let this bombshell drop that, he's taking hydroxychloroquine. Nancy Pelosi's response to that was something to the effect of like, well, look, I think he's morbidly obese. They advise against that. She was obviously drawing attention to the idea of, it's just yet one more example of Trump not listening to his medical and scientific experts. But as of yesterday, she seemed to be on the defensive. Go ahead and play that first clip, Sean, of Nancy Pelosi.
I didn't say anything about the president. I gave him a dose of his own medicine. He's called women one thing or another over time. And I was only quoting what doctors had said about him. So I was being factual in a very sympathetic way. It's like a child who comes in with mud on their pants or something. That's the way it is. They're outside playing. That's what he comes in with doggy do on his shoes, and everybody who works with him has that on their shoes too for a very long time to come.
You just stop there. Look, here's my take on this, or what I used to think was the take on it. Listen to how Pelosi was defensive there from the very beginning. Her tone, her body language, her word choice, all in a posture of defense and appeasement. Appeasement to this sort of liberal run media that now has said, like, hey, we set up this rules here. We set up the rules that you can't fat shame. We set up the rules that you can't disparage someone. Even someone that might be deserving of it as Trump. We can't wear that hypocrisy so openly. So you got to do something about that. And it felt slightly defensive. You can clearly tell how conflicted she is about this as well, though. She knows how absurd it is that she's not allowed to play the same game as Trump or to use the same words or to level the same accusations and insults. And what I think everyone misses in this whole exchange here, at least as far as I'm concerned, is that everyone that plays with Trump gets doggy do in their shoes. She said everyone that's around him, all the Republicans, all the people that are complicit in what he's doing, they're the ones that get doggy do in their shoes. My take on that initially was, though, I've said it before and I'll say it again, do not play Trump's game. The only person that wins in that game is Trump. Everyone else just ends up looking petty. Now it seemed to be Nancy Pelosi that's slinging mud. Whether she's right or wrong, it doesn't matter. The American populace expects that kind of rhetoric from Trump. We've been conditioned to almost support that style of politics from Trump. However, when it comes to someone like Pelosi, whose entire career has been one of distinguished poise and polish, and mimics, when she starts to mimic that same behavior as Trump, we seemingly bristle at it, right? It feels it's unnerving. The narrative is that Trump is that Pelosi fat shaming the president, which of course is a ridiculous notion. I say it's ridiculous. It would be ridiculous if Trump was doing the same thing to Nancy Pelosi, if it was skinny shaming, or he's done as much to everyone else. They're all playing the same games. At the end of the day, I have no problem with that. I honestly don't have any problem with that. Frankly speaking, I think it's a little bit refreshing to see Nancy Pelosi finally try and step up and, for herself or defend herself or something. But once Nancy Pelosi starts doing it, I used to think, and maybe some part of me still does, I used to think that, like, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit. It's not where it's supposed to be. But I don't know, man. In this day and age right now of challenging everything, of challenging what should and should not be, of brand new paradigms, does even that narrative make sense anymore? Sean, if you want to give a response to that, though, I know you had something to say about that before the show, too.
Oh, well, I guess. Here, let me get out my scorecard for Nancy Pelosi here. See, okay, come up with something that felt organic and gets news. Check. The calling him fat. Let's see. Get a hashtag that's actually kind of funny going based on your reaction with the news media. Check. That President Plump hashtag was actually pretty funny. Here's where she went wrong, though. And I feel like this was actually pretty good. Do something that feels organic to you. That's what she did. I think you had in your notes, your Evernote notes, don't ever try to be Trump. Mm-hmm. I don't think she was trying to be Trump. She was totally Nancy Pelosi there. She even had ready to go a good excuse. This is something doctors have said about him. I'm just being factual. She did a lot of things. She checked a lot of the right boxes, trying to be herself, but also taking that Trump approach. But here's where she screwed up. She apologized? You don't apologize.
Right.
I mean, if you learn anything from Trump, don't apologize. I mean, like, is she really sorry that she called him morbidly obese? No. And that's the whole point. It's not that you never apologize. Don't apologize to the American people when they know you're lying. That's where Trump wins. He's not going to apologize for stuff that he knows people know he's not sorry for. Because you know what? Americans had that for about 15 years, where every other day some politician was apologizing for something that they did with a smile on their face. You know what I'm saying? So that was her problem there. And that's their only mark against her, but it does take a lot away. But good for her for kind of being funny. I thought it was kind of funny. That honestly, President Plump hashtag. If you just go search on Twitter, President Plump, and there's some funny art to go along with that.
I appreciated the exchange. I did. Almost in the same way that, remember, like a few months ago when Biden still had some vigor left in him, if you will. He had this weird sort of awkward exchange, at least on the forefront, on its face, in some gym out there in some middle state. I don't know what, it doesn't matter. But there was some exchange going back and forth where he was asking about his son and his connection with, whatever the company was, the name
Burisma.
Now, whatever. Burisma. Thank you, buddy. But he was asking about there's something, and Joe Biden eventually got so ticked off that he basically said, like, you know what, you want to go outside and settle this or something to that effect. I don't know. I don't remember what he said, but it was something like, I'll take you down right now. Like, as old and as frail and as feeble as Joe Biden might be, I was like, all right, bro, yeah.
Yeah, you dog-faced pony soldier.
Right? It's like, I don't agree with the rhetoric, but dude, like that's the state of American politics. And let's not pretend for a second. Like America's somehow above that. Like we're so distinguished, like we've never had that. Dude, this is the country that their senators have been openly beat on the Senate floor with canes. Okay. We used to like tar and feather folks that didn't vote the right way in this country. A former vice president was killed in a duel, for goodness sakes. All right. Let's be for real. We're not to that level yet. So some exchanges, like it's not healthy. Don't get me wrong. But some small part of me wants to say that it's at least honest. It's at least honest with where everyone is feeling, with how they're feeling right now. And I say that, man, because it's getting too close to the point now where people are starting to realize that Democrats just don't have a lot left. Look at this Boston Globe article that's coming up right now. If Nancy Pelosi can just be honest about like this is where we're at, okay? I'm playing the same games as Trump. If you don't like it, vote different people in. If you're not appreciating this exchange, get different people in there. Because everything else they've tried before just isn't working. And I do think to some small sense, in some small sense, it's healthy for people to understand, like, we got to have honest conversations here. The Boston Globe article is essentially saying that Supreme Court blocks the House from the Mueller grand jury material. This is the story we'll end with today, and I hope it's going to prove this whole entire point of like, look, man, if you keep trying these same things, if you keep running into the ground, you're going to start to expose your lack of a hand. You're going to start to expose your lack of a play, your inability to properly put something forward that the American populace can trust in and vote upon. Look, a negative argument is not going to do anything to galvanize your population. For the Democrats is what I'm saying. A negative argument, just don't vote for that guy, isn't a reason to vote for your guy. You can talk bad about Trump all day long if you wanted to, and that seems to be the only play that they have left, at least right now. Here's the story, a quick history. Robert Mueller's 448-page report that was issued in April of 2019. We all remember that, okay? 500-plus page document. There was part one and there was part two. It stopped short of actually reaching any full conclusions, which frustrated most people to no end. Nevertheless, it didn't reach any full-on conclusions about whether Trump did or did not, or whatever his conduct was, including whether he obstructed justice to avoid setting up on the House impeachment power. Now, remember at the time, there was a bunch of redacted material. And the Mueller report essentially said, like, look, dude, there was no Russian collusion at all. That whole narrative was nonsense from the beginning. Now, I can't say that he didn't try to collude with Russia. I can't say that obstruction of justice didn't take place. Nor can I say that it did take place. The Mueller report was essentially saying, first of all, there was no collusion with Russia. Doesn't mean it didn't try to collude with Russia. Secondly, as far as obstructing justice of like the cover up from that afterwards, I don't know, man. I can't make a definitive call on that. I can give you what I found. But that, in my mind, was essentially Mueller saying or signaling to the House, if you want to impeach the guy, y'all are going to have to do it. I'm not going to do that for you. I'm not going to put in this report that he definitively broke some law that he can be held criminally liable for, and then all of a sudden give you guys a scapegoat to impeach the guy. And if it goes wrong or goes sour because the Senate acquits him, now all of a sudden the House can put it back on me. I'm not going to be that guy. That's the report I'm talking about. Well, the Supreme Court the Supreme Court yesterday temporarily prevented House Democrats, let's be for real, this report says House of Representatives, but it's just the Democrats, temporarily prevented House Democrats from obtaining secret grand jury testimony from that special counsel Mueller-Russia investigation. The court's unsigned order keeps previously undisclosed details from the investigation of Russian interference in the 2016 election out of the hands of Democrat lawmakers, at least until early summer. The court will decide then whether to extend its hold. Now, what this means, basically, not much of anything at all. Like nothing at all. It didn't mean anything back then. The only thing that was withheld, like 90+% of this document was already unredacted. It was already fully disclosed. It was publicly available. You can go download it right now in a full PDF version, all 500+ pages of it. The only thing that's redacted is obtaining that secret grand jury testimony. The grand jury testimony that could potentially indict or complicate matters further or something like that. But it's that other grand jury testimony. That's the only thing. So out of the entirety of the 500 pages that's been presented, the premise of this argument for Democrats was, yeah, but hold on. They did make this argument here. Did you wait just a second? The committee investigation did say, quote, We're continuing with this today because of further developments that in light of recent events, there may be, possible reason to continue this exercise because of the improper political influence on decisions to shorten prison terms for Trump's confidant Roger Stone and in the prosecution of former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. Now, that's allegedly the reason that the Democrats want to look back into the redacted information before. And I'm telling you right now, okay, dude, fine. Like, I wouldn't care if you gave it to him anyway. Seriously. What are you going to find in there that's, first of all, going to have anything to do with the DOJ somehow no longer prosecuting Roger Stone or decreasing that sentence and letting Michael Flynn up the hook? How is that going to help you? And secondly, dude, like what element in a crime are you possibly going to be able to tie that back to Trump to? Like, let's say it all worked out in your favor, and the Supreme Court said, like, have at it, y'all. Take the remaining 7 pages of the 500-plus pages if you want to, and just have a field day. Find something in there that works for your cause. Let's say that happened. What in the world could possibly be the outcome? I mean, look, yes, clearly I'm explaining that this is nothing more than a fishing expedition. But beyond that, I'm wondering, let's say you did find something. What could that possibly even be? And how could you tie it back to Trump? And let's say you did tie it back to Trump. Dude, that ship has sailed. That train is so far out of the station, no one cares anymore. You impeach the guy. He was acquitted in the Senate. What are you going to go for round 2 of impeachment? That's the best you have? That's the point of this story. That's a little bit of the point of why I think Shine's right when he says it's a little bit refreshing to see Nancy Pelosi. Yeah, you can call it playing the same game, but maybe it's just Nancy Pelosi being Nancy Pelosi. I don't know, man. There's like, moving and grooving and bobbing and weaving and stinging a little bit. Maybe it's just Nancy Pelosi trying to be Nancy Pelosi again. I don't know, man. Maybe she's figuring it out, because if you take this story at face value, what you basically have to say is like, dude, the best Democrats have is impeachment round 2 for the same thing, for the same stuff that we already vetted out, for the remaining 5 or 6 pages of a 500-page document. That's the best y'all got. Is Nancy Pelosi at the end of her prime? Or well past it, who knows? I don't know. She's now the one playing the same game, and you can't trust Joe Biden anywhere near well enough to actually rely upon him for anything. So you got to play this out one more time, and the Supreme Court shuts it down. Dude, it's just discouraging. It's disheartening. It's depressing for the Democrat Party. And I say that as a true, strong conservative. I say that, man, because if I don't have some good old steel iron, whatever, to sharpen our sword against, then I don't know, man. An unchecked Republican Party is not that great either. I'll put it that way. Look what we did in Tennessee. We got a gas tax out of it. That's where I'll end it today, though. Hey, man, believe it or not, tomorrow is start of a long weekend for a lot of people. Memorial Day weekend, I'm pretty sure is what it's called. Sean and I, though, we will be doing a show tomorrow, so you definitely want to check back in with us here.
Because we like working. We like working, so we will be here.
Let me kick it to my boy Shine, man. Any closing thoughts? Anything I missed? Any Facebook comments we want to go over? Any of that stuff?
I do want to let everybody know. Make sure to check out realnewsradio.live. Sign the petition to reject bailouts. And if you just feeling generous, share that video to ask your fellow Tennesseans to call Senator Alexander, and ask him to reject bailouts. You can find the phone number. I don't have it on hand, but it's in the video that I posted yesterday on Real News. But that's it for me, Mr. Henry.
Hey, man, there you go. We will be coming back tomorrow, doing it big again. My name is Mr. Henry. David Sean Thompson signing off. Love all y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.